The arena is electric. It's February 22nd, 1980. The world's best hockey team, the Soviet Union, is skating with mechanical precision, blades slicing through the Lake Placid ice like knives through glass. Across the rink, a group of American college kids stands shoulder to shoulder. No one believes they can win, not really. But for one young man from a small Minnesota town, belief isn't optional, it's instinct. Neal Broten grips his stick, eyes steady, lungs tight. He isn't thinking about glory. He's thinking about pride, about home, about every frozen pond he skated on in the biting Minnesota cold, dreaming of a moment just like this. When the puck drops, time slows. Every shift is a test of heart versus history. The Soviets move like machines. The Americans like a storm, unpredictable, relentless, alive. Broten battles for loose pucks, skates through bodies, and feeds passes with fearless precision. When the final horn sounds, the scoreboard burns with disbelief. USA 4, USSR 3. The impossible is real. Neal Broten is part of a miracle, one that would echo across generations. But for him, it's not the end. It's only the beginning. Because behind the miracle lies a man who never stopped earning it. Neal Broten was born on November 29, 1959, in Roseau, Minnesota, a town so small, the winters seemed longer than the roads. Hockey wasn't just a pastime there, it was a language, a heartbeat, a way of life. The Broten family lived it fully. Neal and his brothers, Aaron and Paul, would spend hours on the outdoor rinks, long after the sun disappeared and the cold burned through their gloves. Out there, under the northern lights, Neal learned something that no coach could teach, that greatness isn't loud, it's patient. It grows in silence, in repetition, in the discipline of showing up day after day. He wasn't the biggest kid on the ice, not the flashiest either. But Neal had a calm intensity, a mind for the game that set him apart. He could see plays before they happened, feel the rhythm of the puck, anticipate the defense, and glide into open space like he was born to do it. At Roseau High School, he became a hometown hero, leading his team deep into state tournaments, and catching the attention of scouts who saw something special, a playmaker with vision, poise, and a rare humility. By the late 1970s, Neal had joined the University of Minnesota under coach Herb Brooks, a fiery, demanding perfectionist who saw in Broten the makings of something extraordinary. Brooks didn't just want good players, he wanted thinkers, competitors who would redefine American hockey. Neal fit that vision perfectly. He was quiet, but his game spoke loud. In 1979, he led the Gophers to a national championship, and Brooks, always a step ahead, was already assembling a team for something bigger, the 1980 Winter Olympics. When Brooks called, Neal didn't hesitate. He was still a teenager when he joined the roster, a lineup filled with college kids who didn't fully grasp the weight of what they were about to do. The Soviet Union was unbeatable, their players seasoned professionals disguised as amateurs. The U.S. team, by contrast, was raw, emotional, and united by something deeper than skill, a shared belief that effort could overcome experience. At Lake Placid, Neal Broten became one of the team's creative engines. His composure with the puck, his crisp passing, his sense of timing, they gave the Americans rhythm in chaos. He wasn't the loudest voice in the locker room, but his confidence was contagious. When the U.S. beat the Soviets, then went on to defeat Finland for the gold medal, the world saw a miracle. Neal saw proof that heart could rewrite history. But once the celebrations faded and the flags were folded, life went on. For many players, that tournament would remain the pinnacle. For Broten, it was a doorway. The NHL awaited. He was drafted by the Minnesota North Stars, and there was something poetic about that. The local boy coming home, not to rest, but to rise. When he skated onto the ice for his first NHL game, the crowd roared like they were welcoming a son back from war. But this was a different battle now. Faster, tougher, relentless. The NHL was a grind, and talent alone wasn't enough. Neal had to adapt his game, sharpen his edges, and find a way to stand out among giants. And he did. With the North Stars, Broten became known for his creativity, his selflessness, and his playmaking genius. He wasn't chasing highlight reels, he was building teams. In 1981, he helped lead Minnesota to the Stanley Cup Finals. The city came alive with belief again. echoes of Lake Placid returning in every chant. Though they fell short against the powerhouse Islanders, Broten's performance cemented him as one of the best young American forwards in the league. What made Neal different wasn't just skill, it was character. He played the game with quiet grace, always putting the team above himself. Reporters would ask him about his success, his goals, his legacy. He'd just smile and say, "I just try to do my job." The 1980s in the NHL were a golden age, Gretzky, Lemieux, Messier. And amid all those superstars, Neal Broten carved his place through consistency and class. In 1986, he became the first American-born player to score over 100 points in a single NHL season, a milestone that inspired a generation of U.S. players to believe they could stand among the best. He wasn't loud, he wasn't controversial, but he was always there. Game after game, shift after shift. Teammates loved him, opponents respected him, coaches trusted him. By the early 90s, the NHL was changing, and so was Broten's career. He was traded to the New Jersey Devils, a move that could have been the twilight of his time in the league. But Neal Broten wasn't built to fade quietly. In 1995, as the Devils made their run to the Stanley Cup Finals, it was the veteran from Minnesota who became their heartbeat. Game after game, he found ways to elevate the team, scoring crucial goals, anchoring plays, and setting the tone with his composure. When the Devils finally won their first Stanley Cup, Broten was at the center of it all, hoisting the trophy high above his head. The kid from Roseau, who once dreamed beneath frozen skies, was now a champion at every level. After that triumph, Neal played a few more seasons, including a return to the Dallas Stars, before quietly stepping away from the game he loved. There were no dramatic goodbyes, no grand press conferences, just the same calm dignity that had defined him all along. Retirement didn't mean disappearance. Back home in Minnesota, Neal embraced a simpler life: family, fishing, horses, and community. He became a mentor to young athletes, always emphasizing heart over hype, effort over fame. When people asked him about the miracle on ice, he'd smile modestly, deflecting the spotlight. For him, that miracle wasn't just about defeating the Soviets. It was about what happens when ordinary people believe in extraordinary effort. Over the years, his legacy only deepened. He was inducted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, his number retired by Minnesota, his name etched in Olympic and NHL history. Yet, for all the honors, what people remember most about Neal Broten isn't his records. It's his humility, the way he carried himself, the way he played for something bigger than himself. Imagine him now, standing on that same frozen pond in Roseau where it all began, the sun low, the air sharp, the ice cracking softly under his skates. You can almost hear the echoes of a lifetime, the cheers of Lake Placid, the roar of the Stanley Cup crowd, the quiet peace of home. Neal Broten didn't chase fame. He built a legacy of integrity, passion, and perseverance, proof that real greatness doesn't shout. It simply endures. His story reminds us that miracles don't end when the clock hits zero. They live on in the choices we make, the work we put in, and the hearts we inspire. Neal Broten showed the world that heroes aren't defined by a single moment. They were built through a lifetime of moments, all driven by love for what they do. So when you think of the miracle on ice, remember the man who carried that miracle into every game, every shift, every day he laced up his skates. The boy from Roseau who grew into a symbol of American perseverance. Neal Broten, the quiet champion who proved that sometimes the loudest miracles come from the calmest souls. Neal Broten's journey isn't just a story about hockey. It is a story about belief, humility, and endurance. From frozen ponds to Olympic gold to the Stanley Cup, he lived a life defined not by fame, but by purpose. If this story inspired you, if it reminded you that greatness comes from within, then hit that like button, share this story with someone who loves the game, and subscribe to Behind the Medal for more incredible journeys of courage, heart, and human triumph. Because behind every medal, there's a story worth remembering.